Hi, everyone. So I learned a lot this week about our guest speaker and the culture of Singapore. If I were to travel there for business, I would have to keep a few things in mind. Some of those things include being prepared for not just Singapore culture, but diverse cultures under Singapore culture, since Singapore is one of the most diverse uh, places in the world. There's a lot of cultures that influence Singapore culture as a whole. And in business, Singapore is a really important place for business work because uh, they have a prosperous economy and very good political stability. So they're very competitive, and everything is based off of a strong work ethic. But considering how prosperous the economy is, it's very common for people to travel there for business purposes. There's a strong Asian influence in Singapore. Uh, so that influences some of the overall Singapore culture in regards to respect, especially. So the guest speaker said that standing while talking definitely is a sign of respect towards the person you're talking to. There's also a strong focus on respect for the elderly in Singapore, which comes from some Asian cultures. You should always introduce the most important people who are part of your business first. That's like a sign of respect to the people who work for you. If you were traveling as the CEO or owner or boss of a company, you would want to introduce your workers by ranking. So that's another sign of respect. They might ask personal questions. It's not uncommon. So in the US, it would be kind of uncommon to meet somebody that you've never met before for business, and they're asking you if you're married and do you have kids, and that would be a little too personal for just a business meeting with somebody that you haven't met, but that's not uncommon in Singapore. And they're very focused on gaining those connections to be able to make business transactions. There's usually a layer of trust there before you start negotiating with somebody. Another thing to keep in mind when traveling to Singapore for business is that the major religions are Islam and Hinduism, and both religions refrain from using their left hands. They eat with their right hand, they shake with their right hand. So you would probably want to keep that in mind when introducing yourself or eating, if you were eating on, a business lunch or something along those lines. Being punctual is a very important thing in Singapore. It's just as important as it is in the United States. So, as our textbook read, they would be considered a like M time, monochronic time. That's what they run off of in their businesses. Punctuality is very important, and things are usually organized and planned very tightly. So if you are standing up with your hands on your hips, this is another thing that I found with my research. That could be a possible sign of like anger or aggression towards somebody. So if I were to travel there for business, I would probably not put my hands on my hips. I wouldn't want somebody to perceive me as being aggressive or, I mean, depending on the situation, maybe if you're negotiating with somebody and you want them to feel intimidated without offending them, maybe having that stance would work in your favor in that case. It's not necessarily a disrespectful thing. It's more just it's kind of showing like that you're angry or some maybe not feeling that way. So you would want to either stay away from that or just keep that in mind. And also something that we've talked about in recent weeks that is rude in other cultures is also rude in Singapore, and it's pointing with your finger. Especially if you're pointing to a person with your finger, that's considered very rude. So that's definitely something that we also have in common with Singapore. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great weekend, everyone.